News!
Okay, we'll start with this. Matchroom Boxing has announced the contract extension of Skye Nicolson, the Aussie amateur standout that debuted under that promotion and means to continue fighting on that side of the street. What I consider a smart move.
So maybe Matchroom isn't the authority in women's boxing like they used to be. They're not the flagship promoter for the women boxers.
Not anymore. I think that MVP has taken the reins in that department, but that doesn't mean that Matchroom isn't still doing their part, because Matchroom were pivotal in the big women's boxing boom that we've seen in the last 10 years. At one point, there was nobody in the industry with more female fighters under contract than Matchroom.
And they've still got a few. They still have a robust stable of women Valkyries, perhaps not as many as MVP.
But what women boxers they have under contract do have visibility, Skye Nicolson among them. It's a wise decision to stay there due to the deal that Matchroom just inked with Foxtel in Australia. This would enable Skye Nicolson to fight regularly on her own home turf. Skye has been a bit of a jet setter since she debuted as a professional. She's fought in the United Kingdom, in the United States, at least once in Mexico, once in Saudi.
She's been around, and now she's returning home.
In what is the upcoming Mariah Turner fight, a Matchroom show, I wasn't aware that Skye had entered free agency. Usually mum's the word.
Why?
Very general sense, a promotional outfit that is invested in a fighter who's on the eve of achieving free agency doesn't want other promoters finding out, because if they do, they might try to make that fighter offers to bring them to their side of things. So people are usually pretty tight-lipped about when a contract is ending.
That is, unless the fighter or their managerial team announce it themselves.
Thus, I wasn't aware that Skye Nicolson was on the eve of entering free agency. I take it that the upcoming Mariah Turner fight was going to be the final fight of her existing deal up until they inked this long-term extension.
Emphasis on long-term.
She won't be migrating to MVP like so many other women boxers, many of which used to fight under the Matchroom banner. She's staying put.
She trusts them.
And I don't blame her, because you look over at Olympic gold medalist Lauren Price, who made quite the splash in the amateurs that she is not now making in the pros. Being promoted by Boxer, you rarely see the woman, you rarely hear about her, and she had a better amateur career than Skye.
But in the paid ranks, Skye has the better promoter. That's why Skye Nicolson, whether you like her or not, has a lot more visibility than many other women boxers.
Skye's upcoming fight will be a defense of her WBC interim title. I expect that she should win. But staying on the Matchroom side of things, is that going to be an obstacle in getting the winner of this weekend's fight in the ring, Scottney versus Flores?
There's going to be obstacles, but Matchroom ain't one of them.
If Skye Nicolson doesn't get that fight with the winner that I think is going to be Ellie Scottney, it won't be because she signed a long-term extension with Matchroom. It'll likely be because Ellie Scottney moves up after that.
If she doesn't get that fight.
But the reason it might be a good idea that she stayed with Matchroom is even if she doesn't get that fight, Matchroom can keep her active, keep her fighting, keep her visible, and if Ellie Scottney leaves Super Bantamweight after this weekend, Skye Nicolson will instantly become the most recognizable fighter at that weight.
The biggest name.
At a time at the weight where the reset button has been hit and the world titles will get redistributed. Skye is very close to becoming a two-weight world champion. Because I don't think Ellie Scottney's going to stay at Super Bantam if she wins. I don't think she's going to stick around long enough to give Skye Nicolson a shot.
A new crop of champions will sprout from the ground, and Skye Nicolson will be one among them, at which point she can start on an undisputed run at Super Bantamweight.
And being the biggest name at the weight, in the absence of Ellie Scottney, going undisputed at Super Bantam might be a bit easier than it was at Feather.
Easier, at least, to get the fights.
That's what I think about it. And Skye Nicholson's long-term extension with Matchroom, I think it was a good move. I think it was a smart move.
You know, for Josh now, we kind of, after that fight was made, we're talking about a voluntary defence in July. And then Adam Booth phoned me up and said, look, let's make the Fundora fight. So we've had very, very early conversations with BBC about that. They're very interested. And I said, let's make Josh Kelly against Fundora, and then the winner fights the winner of Boots' Zayas for the undisputed. So, I mean, that would be a very natural thing to do. and just a sign that boxing's in a great place because the best are fighting the best, the champions are fighting the champions, and yeah, on we go.
I wouldn't get too excited because these are preliminary discussions we're talking about. Josh Kelly's still going to have a voluntary in the interim, and this is a Samson Lukowicz fighter we're talking about.
And Sebastian.
So what would make Sebastian Fundora and Samson Lukowicz more receptive to a Josh Kelly fight than they were a Xander Zayas fight?
Money.
Matchroom might be willing to put up more money for Sebastian to fight Josh than Top Rank was for him to fight Xander.
Money.
It would be a unification match between reigning champions, and thus they would be paid as such.
Money.
Sebastian really couldn't have made much money in the 1 or 2 pay-per-view appearances he's made in what was the first Tim Tszyu fight and the more recent Keith Thurman fight. Those fights didn't sell nothing, you know that, because if they did, the PBC would have been bragging about it. You didn't hear any numbers for either of those fights. I really don't think Sebastian could have made more than $1 million. Maybe 2? Big maybe.
Money.
He would likely make more money unifying titles with Josh Kelly on the Matchroom and DAZN side of things, but of course, therein lies the dilemma. Immediately following the Keith Thurman fight,
And this is why you can't get too excited.
at the post-fight presser, Samson Lukowicz said everything's gotta be on the PBC side of things. He's still playing side of the street politics, which could get in the way of a Josh Kelly fight.
This is why I said you can't get too excited. It's too early.
And even if Sebastian Fundora stands more to make boxing Josh Kelly than he's been making on the PBC side of things, Samson might muck it up. He might fuck it up, asking for too much.
This is why I said you can't get too excited. It's too early.
You know, money might be a part of the reason Sebastian is more willing to fight Josh Kelly than he was willing to fight Xander Zayas. A scarcity of options.
Safe one.
Sebastian Fundora and Samson Lukowicz might look at Josh Kelly as being a safer option than, say, Xander Zayas, Jaron Ennis, Virgil Ortiz.
They might look at him as being more beatable because he's been beaten before. He got knocked out at welter by David Evanesian. They might have that on their mind.
If a little old David Evanesian can stop this guy, we can stop this guy. Surmising the reasons that Sebastian might actually accept this fight. The money, it might be for more money than he's been making, and Josh Kelly is a beatable guy. He's been beat before.
You think Sebastian beats him?
Yeah, I might actually give Sebastian the edge in that one, because the aesthetic of that fight might be the same as the one we just saw. Now, what Josh Kelly and Keith Thurman have in common in a fight is they like to get on the balls of their feet, use the ring, and move around.
Staying on the outside of their opponent, on the move, setting traps, looking to counter. They both like to do that.
Now, you see what happened to Keith Thurman when he tried to do that. If Josh Kelly tries to do the same thing's gonna happen. Sebastian Fundora is too tall a fighter and too long a fighter with too persistent a jab for a smaller fighter to think he can box him from the outside. From the outside, you're a sitting duck. This becomes target practice for Sebastian Fundora's lead hand. Whack-a-mole. The way to beat him ain't trying to stay on the outside of his lead, it's getting on the inside of it, getting past it, and crowding him in the pocket, then engaging, throwing hooks, throwing uppercuts, throwing body shots.
That's how you beat him.
That'd be Josh Kelly's only chance to beat him. Mid-range to inside, in the exchange, in between the punches. And the issue there is, that ain't Josh Kelly's bag.
That really ain't how that guy fights.
You ask yourself, well, can't he make that adjustment? I mean, every opponent's not the same. You have to adjust to the man in front of you, and Josh Kelly could try to.
Not every fighter's good at making adjustments, you know.
The really elite guys, the cream of the crop, and the best of the best, those are the kind of guys that can do that from fight to fight based on the opponent, whereas Josh...
I don't expect him to do that.
But let's say that he tried to. Make that adjustment. Come forward, crash the pocket, kraut this guy. What happens then?
This is gonna sound familiar.
Because that's not what he does. And that's not what he's built for. If you try to step on the gas, you ain't got the cardio for that assignment or the punching power to end it early.
This is gonna sound familiar.
Josh Kelly might wear himself out from trying to make that adjustment. A subject I broached ahead of the Keith Thurman fight. That Keith ain't no pressure guy, but if he tries to become one, could gas out.
So you're still doubting Josh Kelly, even after he proved you wrong?
I am, because I don't think he's durable enough for this assignment. I don't think he can take but so many clean punches from Sebastian Fundora, and even if he improved a bit, and he's coming off a career best win, that was over an inactive Bakram Murtazaliev, who had not fought in over a year.
Well over a year.
So you think it doesn't matter that Bakram had heaps upon heaps of ring rust going into that fight? You think that didn't have a role to play? I'm just telling you, that will not be the case with Sebastian.
Consider it impartial, because I have a go at Sebastian Fundora and Samson Lukowicz all the time.
All the time. So that if I'm now leaning towards Sebastian to win the fight, that's just me being impartial. That's just me being objective. Stylistically, it's a winnable fight for Sebastian Fundora, and that might be why he takes it.
No guarantees.
There is a lot that could go wrong in those negotiations. A whole lot. But if Sebastian actually decides to do it, that might be why. The money's good, and the opponent is beatable.
We'll see if they can make it, but I ain't holding my breath.
Elsewhere in the world of boxing, Canelo injury revelation takes shine off of Crawford win.
Here we go with this shit.
Trainer Eddie Reynoso indicated to Fight Hub TV that Canelo was already dealing with the elbow problem before stepping into the ring with Crawford. The Mexican star later underwent surgery on the issue and is now said to be fully recovered as he prepares for a return later this year. That timeline inevitably casts the Crawford fight in a slightly different light. The injury timeline. Reynoso's comments suggest the elbow problem existed before Canelo faced Crawford, meaning the four-weight world champion may have entered one of the biggest fights of his career less than 100%.
Spare me. Because professional boxers at every level always go into fights at less than 100%. They all have wear and tear. They all have issues.
I'm a fan of Canelo Alvarez, like I'm a fan of Terence Crawford, but I've no stomach for excuses, no patience. It would not be the first time a major fighter carried an injury into the ring. But confirmation after the fact always changes the conversation surrounding the result. Canelo's subsequent surgery confirmed the issue was serious enough to require medical attention once the fight was over. Now, according to Reynoso, the recovery process is complete and Canelo is back at full fitness ahead of his planned return in September.
And you don't look at any of this as a legitimate reason he might have lost.
I watched Naoya Inoue suffer a fractured orbital bone in the thick of the Nonito Donaire fight. He was injured during the fight, and he still won. I watched Jai Opataya suffer a broken jaw in the first Mayris Briedis fight, and in spite of the injury, he still won.
I watched.
Those injuries were a lot more gruesome than a little bit of tennis elbow, so I'm sorry, but I ain't got no stomach for that shit. Crawford's win over Canelo was widely celebrated as one of the defining wins of his career and strengthened his position among boxing's pound-for-pound elite. However, revelations that Canelo may have been dealing with an elbow problem beforehand inevitably take some of the shine off the achievement. Fighters stepping into the ring with injuries is nothing new in boxing, but when the information surfaces afterwards, it often reshapes how a fight is remembered.
Yeah, if you're one of the guys looking for excuses.
If you're somebody looking for something to lean on, following weeks of speculation, attention is now turning to Canelo's next move. As the Mexican superstar prepares for a return later this year, the former undisputed champion has already been linked to a September showdown with newly elevated WBC super middleweight champion Christian Mabili. Mabili recently told World Boxing News he would welcome the opportunity to face Canelo as he looks to define his reign at the top of the division. With Canelo now reportedly back to full fitness, that potential clash could quickly move into focus. For Crawford, the win still stands as a major milestone, even if the circumstances surrounding it look slightly different.
Here's a newsflash. It's not Terence Crawford's job to make sure that Canelo is in tip-top shape going into a fight. That's Canelo's job. That's Eddie's job. That's their responsibility, not Crawford's.
And what I saw Canelo Alvarez struggle with wasn't even his ability to throw punches, but his ability to get within distance of Crawford. It was the movement that was throwing Canelo Alvarez off.
In tandem with Crawford's variety of punches.
Terence, going into that fight with Canelo, had not fought in over a year's time, had no experience at the weight, had not fought as a super middleweight, and he was the older fighter.
Those are just fucking facts.
And that's what I like to stick to, the fucking facts. But I've noticed since that fight, the Canelo Alvarez fans have been hard at work discrediting that victory after being the ones that picked Canelo to win.
Well, didn't you?
I did. And you see that I'm not bitter about it. I don't have to make a million fucking excuses about Canelo's tennis elbow or his knobby knees.
Gay.
A huge Canelo Alvarez fan, and you guys know that. But every time the guy loses, he makes an excuse. When he loses to Bivol, it's because he hurt his hand. When he loses to Crawford, it's because he hurt his elbow.
Stop the cap.
Got a guy on Twitter. He goes by the name I Am Me, otherwise known as Javi. I remember him from years ago in the Facebook boxing groups. He's been following me for years.
How could I forget him? He looks like a fucking potato.
A russet potato, making excuses for Canelo Alvarez, saying Canelo isn't a natural 168-pounder.
Neither is Crawford.
Canelo started at 140 pounds.
Crawford started at 135. What's your point?
Fundora stops Crawford at 147 and 154.
Then why did he duck him to fight Spence?
Triple G stops Crawford at 160.
Triple G retired before Crawford moved up.
Benavidez stops him at 168.
Benavidez moved up to 175 before Crawford moved up to 168.
Others within those weight classes had the size and reach advantage to beat him too, but he skipped them like a scared fighter. You mean like you're scared to show your potato face on your own profile pic, hiding behind your phone? Scared like that?
Do you know how fucking stupid you sound, Javi?
I know a lot of what you're saying is really just motivated by nationalism. After all, nationalism is what puts asses in the seats, sells tickets, sells pay-per-views.
There is room for nationalism and tribalism in all of organized sports, but as I often say, there's no room for it in any conversation I'm having because I don't give a fuck about your nationalism.
I don't give two salient shits about where your mommy was born, or where your daddy was born, where you were born, what flag you hang above your dining room table.
Who fucking
You
cares?
keep trying to have a boxing conversation with me about boxing, but I can see what motivates you.
It's not boxing.
You're making more excuses for Canelo losing that fight than Canelo, who I'm pretty sure you picked to win that fight. So do you think that now I'm gonna listen to anything you have to say?
Why do you think there's no traffic on your page, Javi?
Why do you think you've followed me for so many years on so many different social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter?
And throughout all of that, nobody listens to you.
Well, you're still trying to gain an audience with me, as if I'm gonna listen to you, as if it's gonna be different.
It's not.
You are a fucking retard.
Do you think if you say the same thing over and over again, it'll start to be true?
It'll start to sound different. You can say the same thing 1 time, 10 times. It's gonna sound just as stupid the last time as it did the first.
Because of who it's coming from. Because you're stupid.
Canelo lost.
He lost.
He lost to Dimitri Bivol and he lost to Terence Crawford.
He lost.
Get fucking over it.
Badgering me isn't gonna change that Crawford beat him.
What do? Comb the internet for Crawford fans to argue with because your favorite fighter lost? Are you that big a fucking loser?
Yes, he is.
Okay then. Be a big fucking loser. Be a sore loser. It's not gonna change what I think, and it's not gonna change what happened.
I know you would like it to, and that's why you keep pestering me, but no.
Nah, Crawford won. Fair and square.
You're a square.
You're a dork. Stop fucking talking to me.
Get the fuck out of here.